BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is our Countdown to Two-A-Days series. Our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we're going to be looking at in our August 16th preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we've got one of the mainstays of Big Country football that we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the Cisco Lobos.
Yeah, I mean, Cisco has, long been one of the most successful programs in our area, been one of those perennial powers. And this year, I think, is going to be a very interesting season for them. This is going to be a younger group than what Cisco is used to having. They've graduated some really dynamic players over the last couple of years. Only 10 Lettermen back from last year's 11-3 squad, 3 starters on both sides of the field. I think it's going to be a big challenge for Coach Kevin Stinnett to see kind of if Cisco's still that reload program that it's always been. But it should be another fun season for Cisco, which has, again, just been one of the most successful programs, the most consistent programs year in and year out. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Before we talk about Cisco, let's remind you YouTubers to please hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell also, so you get notifications every time we come up with a new podcast here at Big Country Preps. Will be very handy for you to have that as we do our countdowns. We're going to be looking at an area team every single day, all the way up to the outset of preseason workouts. So please hit subscribe, please hit the bell, and follow along with us all summer long until football season gets underway.
With that, let's just go ahead and jump in head first on the Cisco Lobos. This is, to me, one of the more interesting years I can remember because Cisco has been that reload program. Cisco never fields bad football teams. They put one great football team on the field after another. And this year's team, has some questions, if we're just being honest. And the big one, I think, is they're going to have a lot of young kids. The 3 starters on both sides of the ball. They've got call-ups from a 5-5 JV team, lost 16 Lettermen, included among that group some kids who were just, some of the Big Country's best players over the last 2 and 3 years. So I think this is going to be a big season for Cisco, just to prove that they're still Cisco. And that to me is the big question. Can this program withstand those kind of graduation losses, bring in a bunch of young kids, have them fill in important roles, and can they grow as fast as they need to keep Cisco being the Cisco Lobos that we've come to know?
They're going to have a new quarterback. They're going to have a new backfield. They're going to have all these young skilled people, youth across the board. The key question for me going into this season is, will they get a push up front? They're not the biggest team on the block this year either. This is maybe a little smaller than we've seen as far as Cisco teams are concerned. Can they get that push up front? And generally, Cisco's found a way. Cisco has found a way to get a push up front. And if they do it again, they're going to win again. But we'll take a closer look at that on August 16th.
Yeah, and you mentioned, losing your quarterback, losing your backfield. Hunter Long, over the last 3 years, he may be among the best running quarterbacks that we've had in the area since I've been here. That kid was just a truly dynamic athlete. Trent Houston, another kid that you could just pencil in, and he was a 1,000-yard rusher every year. Those guys are gone. So I think the big question is, who's going to fill in and be their playmakers? And this is going to be a really good opportunity for some of those young kids we talked about, because Hunter Long wasn't Hunter Long until he stepped in as a sophomore and ran for 1,600 yards or whatever he did. So there's going to be opportunities for some young Cisco skill kids to come in and be that next batch. Cisco's had so many great quarterbacks and running backs over the years. Who's going to be that next group, and do they have that on this year's roster? I think that's going to be a big question and a big key if they're going to be as successful as they've been in recent years.
Now, the one downside, if you want to look at it as a downside, take a look at Cisco's schedule here. The one downside to being a perennial power is that nobody wants to play you. So on years that you might be a little on the young side, you can't schedule maybe a few cupcakes to let the young kids grow up and mature and build some confidence. Cisco's schedule, as you can see, is going to be difficult. A road date at Clyde, starting things off, and a home date against what should be a very good Wall team on September the 1st. A home date against a burgeoning Breckenridge program on the 8th, and then a tough road date at Jacksboro on September the 15th. That's a challenging non-district portion for any team, much less a young team. So it's a trial by fire.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned it, you don't get to rewrite your schedule. And in years like this, where you're in between alignments, it doesn't matter what kind of team you have, you're playing the schedule you set up during that realignment year. And this is going to be a really brutal non-district one, taking you straight into a really tough district schedule. They open on September 22nd with a road date at what should be an improved Colorado City team, host Winters on the 29th, go to Olney on the 6th, play Stanford, which will be a big game, on October 13th at home, have their open date on October 20th before wrapping up district play with a couple of big games, October 27th at Anson, and then obviously the big one, what's been kind of a huge rivalry game in that regular season finale, November 3rd at home against Holly. So this is a very, very unforgiving schedule for Cisco, both in the non-district and district portion. I think the key is to grow through that non-district schedule, regardless of what your record is. Get as ready as you can for district, pick up wins where you can, and then try to compete. But this is going to be a very big challenge for what should be a very young Cisco team.
All right, and with that, it's about time to wrap up the Countdown to Two-A-Days series. But before we do that, we want to remind you that on August 16th, we've got our preseason preview coming out, our annual preseason preview, the most comprehensive look at Big Country High School football that you're going to get from any media source in the area. And that really includes the entire state of Texas. This is our turf. We're going to take a bigger look at this area than anybody else.
In the meantime, thank you for joining us for this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series, and make sure you return tomorrow when we will be featuring the Colorado City Wolves here at BigCountryPreps.com.